Where the Water Tastes Like Wine is a slow contemplative walk through Depression-era America, quite literally. A large portion of the game is spent wandering through a map of the United States to the tune of beautiful 30s-style songs. The game is centered around collecting and retelling stories. Across the country, you come across some interactive vignettes about everything from a girl whose best friend is a chicken, to a hatchet thief who meets a mysterious end, to the Jersey Devil. Once you've gathered some stories, you can meet characters at campfires and tell the stories to them in exchange for advancing their own. Once your stories are out in the world, they start to change in the telling. A man becomes a ghost becomes a vengeful spirit. And from there you tell them again in their new forms. That's the basic gameplay loop. Find stories, tell stories, repeat. An interesting thing about this is that where the Water Tastes Like Wine does have typical video gamey things like money, health, and stamina. However, these things don't really matter much in comparison to the game's real currency, stories. Money can buy you things to refill your health or stamina, or allow you to take a train, and sometimes it's affected by the vignettes, but it's not hugely important. Similarly, health and stamina aren't especially a focus either. Stamina determines when you need to rest at a campfire, and you, of course, die when your health falls too low, but neither of these are especially detrimental to your progress. You keep all your stories when you die and simply respawn at a random point on the map. It's an interesting subversion of the accepted standards of what these things mean in games and how they work. Ultimately, this boils down to something about the core of Where the Water Tastes Like Wine. It's not a game you win. Now, there are points to be made about how the mechanics of the game do or don't serve its purpose. I've heard criticism of the fact that the player has no real hand in changing the stories themselves, making them feel more like a passive observer of the world rather than an active participant. And I think those are valid criticisms. However, there's also something to be said for how that passiveness meshes with the setting and themes of the game. It's set in the Great Depression. Almost all of the people you meet are struggling in some way or another, and there's no feasible way for the player to significantly change that. It subverts the common goal in games to somehow save the world, rescue the princess, etc. The point of Where the Water Tastes Like Wine is that things will get better with time, and there is hope for the future. But the most an individual can do are small acts of kindness, and to pass on what stories you can so that they aren't forgotten. Now, all that said, I do think that as a game, it could be utilizing its mechanics better. While the player's passive nature serves the tone well, there's something to be said for the idea of giving players some agency in the ways that the stories change. That could bolster the game's ideas about the changing nature of storytelling, and make the player a participant in one of the game's concepts, which is the nature of truth in storytelling. What makes a story true, and does it matter? Being able to make those decisions could promote more critical thinking about this topic. But overall, I think that while it could be improved mechanics-wise, Where the Water Tastes Like Wine is a subversion of a lot of standard gaming rules, and it utilizes that to effectively relay the themes of, as the game puts it, a country on its knees.